Welcome everyone and thank you so much for joining me today. If you love coins, hidden treasures, unbelievable stories, and the idea that something small in your pocket could be worth more than a luxury mansion or a private jet, then you are absolutely in the right place. Today we're diving deep into one of the most shocking and fascinating stories in modern American coin collecting, the 1984 1-cent USA coin, a penny that looks ordinary at first glance but has been linked by collectors to values reaching an astonishing $345 million because of rare errors, minting mistakes, and extraordinary mint mark possibilities. This is not just a story about money, it's a story about history, accidents, chance, and how tiny details can completely change the destiny of a coin. At first glance, the 1984 1-cent coin seems like nothing special. It's a Lincoln penny, the kind most people have seen thousands of times in jars, drawers, wallets, and old piggy banks. Millions upon millions of these pennies were struck at the Denver Mint in 1984, and most of them are still only worth their face value of 1 cent. But within this massive production run, collectors believe a very small number of extraordinary pieces were created that break all the normal rules of coin value. These rare examples are the reason the 1984 penny has become legendary in era coin circles and why some collectors whisper about jaw-dropping valuations that sound almost impossible to believe. To understand why this coin has captured so much attention, we need to step back and look at the time period in which it was made. The early 1980s were a turbulent era for U.S. coin production. Rising metal prices had already forced the United States Mint to change the composition of the penny in 1982, moving from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This transition alone created chaos at the mints, because old copper planchets and new zinc planchets sometimes mixed together. Machinery had to be recalibrated, and quality control struggled to keep up with the pace of production. By 1984, the system was still dealing with the aftershocks of those changes, and that's where the seeds of extreme rarity were planted. The Denver Mint, marked by the small D mint mark beneath the date, was under enormous pressure to produce coins quickly to meet public demand. When speed increases, the chances of mistakes increase as well. Dies wear out, planchets get damaged, alignment shifts, and human oversight sometimes fails. In most cases, these errors are minor and go unnoticed, but occasionally something truly extraordinary slips through. The 1984 1-cent coin is famous precisely because it is associated with some of the most dramatic and mysterious errors ever discussed in the penny series. One of the most talked about possibilities involves extreme double die errors. A double die occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives more than one misaligned impression during its creation. When that die strikes planchets, the doubling appears on the coin itself, often visible in the date, lettering, or Lincoln's features. Many double die pennies are valuable, but the alleged 1984 double die varieties are said to go far beyond the typical examples. Collectors report coins where the doubling is so bold and dramatic that it looks almost like two separate designs overlapping each other. In theory, if a unique double die with unprecedented characteristics were discovered and verified, its value could skyrocket into unimaginable territory, especially if it were the only known example. Another factor that fuels the massive valuation claims is the possibility of transitional planchet errors. Even though 1984 is officially a zinc penny year, there is ongoing speculation that a tiny number of copper planchets from earlier years may have remained in the system. If a 1984 penny were struck on a full copper planchet instead of the standard zinc core, it would already be extremely rare. But collectors go even further, suggesting the possibility of experimental or off-metal strikes, where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. A penny struck on a planchet meant for a dime, a foreign coin, or an experimental alloy would be an absolute unicorn in the coin world. Then there are the dramatic die break and die clash errors associated with the 1984 penny. Die breaks happen when a piece of the die cracks or breaks away, leaving raised blobs, lines, or distorted shapes on the coin. Die clashes occur when the dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring parts of the design from one die to the other. Some reported 1984 pennies allegedly show extreme die damage combined with other errors, creating one-of-a-kind pieces that defy normal classification. In rare cases, collectors believe multiple major errors occurred on a single coin, something that exponentially increases desirability and theoretical value. The mint mark itself plays a huge role in the mystique of this coin. The D mint mark indicates Denver, but some collectors claim to have seen 1984 pennies with abnormal mint marks, including repunched mint marks, tilted mint marks, or mint marks that appear doubled or partially missing. Because mint marks were still punched into dies by hand at that time, mistakes were more likely than in later years. A highly dramatic mint mark error, especially one combined with other major errors, can elevate a coin from interesting to legendary. One of the most fascinating theories surrounding the 1984 D1 cent involves the idea of unique experimental strikes. Throughout U.S. mint history, experimental planchets and test strikes have occasionally been produced to test new metals, coatings, or striking pressures. Most of these experimental coins are destroyed, but history has shown that a few sometimes escape into circulation. If an experimental 1984 D penny were ever discovered, especially one tied to a previously undocumented test, it could rewrite what we know about that year's production and command a value that reflects its singular status. Condition is another massive driver of value. Even among error coins, condition matters enormously. A 1984 D penny with a major error that also happens to be in near perfect, uncirculated condition would be far rarer than one that circulated for years. Some of the eye-popping valuations associated with this coin assume a specimen with flawless surfaces, strong original luster, and sharp detail, preserved as if it were frozen in time since the moment it left the press. When rarity and condition align perfectly, collectors are willing to compete at levels that seem irrational to outsiders. The story of the 1984 D penny's extreme value is also fueled by the psychology of collecting. Coin collectors are driven by the thrill of discovery and the desire to own something no one else has. The idea that a humble penny could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars captures the imagination like few other stories can. It's the ultimate underdog narrative, and it keeps people searching through rolls of pennies, estate collections, and old jars in the hope of finding the next great discovery. Auction history and private sales also play a role in shaping these valuations. While no publicly confirmed sale of a 1984 D penny for hundreds of millions has occurred, collectors often point to precedent. Coins that were once dismissed as ordinary have later sold for record-breaking sums when new information came to light, or when a unique specimen was recognized as truly one of a kind. The famous 1943 copper penny and 1955 double die cent are prime examples of how rarity combined with error can lead to astronomical prices. Supporters of the 1984 D penny theory argue that it could represent the next leap in that evolution. Another important aspect is authentication. For a coin to reach such a staggering value, it would need to be authenticated and graded by top-tier experts. This process can take years, involving extensive metallurgical testing, die study, and historical research. During this process, myths are separated from facts, and only the most extraordinary coins survive scrutiny. The very idea that a 1984 D penny could pass all these tests and emerge as a unique, or nearly unique specimen is what drives the fascination and speculation. Collectors also talk about error stacking, where multiple independent errors occur on the same coin. For example, a penny might show a doubled die, an off-center strike, a wrong planchet, and a mint mark anomaly all at once. Each error on its own might be valuable, but together they create a coin that may be impossible to replicate. Some of the most dramatic claims about the 1984 D penny involve this kind of error stacking, suggesting the existence of coins that are so unusual they defy standard valuation models. The Denver Mint's production numbers in 1984 add another layer to the story. With billions of pennies produced, the odds of a freak accident occurring increase. At the same time, finding that accident among billions of coins becomes incredibly difficult. This paradox is part of what makes the hunt so compelling. Every roll of pennies is a tiny lottery ticket, and every